everyone? This is your coach Renz. We are going live. We're going to talk about the Council of Nicaea tonight. Just doing some housekeeping right now. And I'm going to have to step away from this camera for a second. I just realized that. So if you're watching this on replay, you might want to fast forward every here and there till we get to the actual conversation. But right now we're just sending out some information, let people know that we about to go live. When you come on, hey, if you're already here, let me know who you are, even if it's on the replay. Say hello, how you doing? How's everything going? How your mama Neil? Just doing some sharing on Facebook, let some people know. Go ahead and share this live. What's up, Reginald? Peace out, bro. Share this live, let people know. I don't know how you share live on YouTube, but share it anyway, however it works. I think I know. I can't do it. Let's see, can I? Let's see, it says I can share it. Ooh. Alright, let's see if this thing works this time. Y'all up here talking about some Metro PCS. I do not have Metro PCS. Reginald Williams. Let's see. Alright, let me know if I'm buffering. I'm about to check myself though. Alright. Everything seems to be on point now. Shut down my own voice. Alright. For those who are watching this on replay, I'm sorry you had to wait 15 minutes for us to get this thing fixed up. 16 minutes. For everybody else, with your little Metro PCS jokes, AT&T actually had a diagnostic issue that was going on. Hey Rika, how you doing? So there was a diagnostic issue, but it's fixed now. So everybody got you. You should have me good. All right. Well, tonight, since my man Kevin is down, and I know Ricky is doing it live. I didn't know that. If I had known that, I probably would have did it with Ricky. But figured might as well do it live tonight. Have a little conversation. I alluded to it if you had saw my live this morning at 10:30 a.m. For you guys who don't know that 10:30 a.m. I do a simulcast with a Facebook closed group that I've been asked to do a group spiritual journeys for them, and I simulcast it on my YouTube channel. For the people who donated during that first one, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But we're going to see if tonight we're going to have a lively discussion concerning the Council of Nicaea. And the Council of Nicaea has always been this hotly debated issue. Many people have always, whether you're on the Christian side or you're on the Gnostic side or the atheist side, it's always been this huge argument because it's such a key point in not only Christian history, but it's a key point in world history. What we have to realize is that there are so many world ramifications that occurred because of what happened at the Council of Nicaea. And tonight, whether these things are supportive of a religion or not supportive of a religion, I could care less. The thing about it is, it's always about a pursuit of truth. It doesn't matter what the truth ends up being. It's just a pursuit of said truth is all that we should ever really care about, right? Thank you, Uncolonized Mind. It is an interesting topic. So before we really start talking about the Council of Nicaea, let's go today, go back, and then into the middle of it. In today's world, like I was saying, the Council of Nicaea has played such a huge pivotal point. It's argued by people who are theologians, people who are apologetics, people who are devout into the religions, as well as people who are agnostic and people who are atheists and who are against traditional religions. This is a argument that people consistently and continuously have. Now, the fact of the matter is that truth always has a perspective that it comes from. And even though, yes, I come from my own perspective, we're going to try to look at this as purely as possible. Now, one of the things that my detractors may go ahead and say is that how do you accept history written by somebody else and you weren't there? It's not about me not being there. One of the sources, and one of the primary sources for the Council of Nicaea, is Eusebius of Caesarea. Eusebius of Caesarea was Constantine's primary historian. He was writing the history, the annals of Constantine as they happened, as an eyewitness. One of my problems with many other historical accounts of things is the fact that none of the eyewitnesses wrote about it. But in this instance, we have Eusebius of Caesarea writing about it, Arius writing about it, Alexander of Alexander writing about it, Athanasius writing about it. These were people writing about it as it happened. Now, yes, they had their own spins on it, depending upon how they came out of it. We're gonna talk about Melentius later, but Melentius wrote about it. Good evening, Chandel. So these are people who wrote about it during the time frame that it was happening. So even though they had their own political agendas during that time frame, hey, Alex, haven't seen you in a long time, young lady. Hadn't talked to you in a long time. But even though Eusebius had his reasons, Constantine had his reasons, Athanasius, everybody had their reasons, at least these are people writing it at the time frame that it happened, and not people who were writing about it 50 years, 100 years, 2, 3, 5, 600 years after. So what we're looking at here is what actually was discussed at the Council of Nicaea, what came out of the Council of Nicaea, not the things that people put on the Council of Nicaea. Now let's go ahead and dispel something right now so that some of the foolish ones won't go ahead and make their little statements. At no point am I saying Christianity began at the Council of Nicaea, nor am I saying that it was created at the Council of Nicaea, nor am I also saying that Jesus, the character Jesus, was created at the Council of Nicaea. That's not what we're saying. Nor are we saying the canons, the book, the current version of the Bible, was established at the Council of Nicaea. Now we're going to dive into some of those things, but let's clear that out of the way for some of these people. But the thing about it, even in talking about it, we want to get some lessons that we can learn, things we can apply, understandings that we can have throughout this whole thing. Because I think Arius is a very interesting character throughout this entire process. So, without further ado, let's look at some of the events that led up to the Council of Nicaea. All right? I got my notes. I found my notes, actually. And I was like, oh, look, my notes on the Council of Nicaea. So, one of the precursors to the Council of Nicaea that you really have to go and look at, you have to look about 13, 14 years prior to the Council of Nicaea at the Emperor Domitian. Without looking at Domitian, you really don't get a feel for what was going on during that time frame. And that's what you have to have when you look at these things historically. You got to have a feel, an understanding for how society was, what people were doing, how they thought. Because how we think today is irrelevant to how they thought back then. I use the phrase historism when we do that. So Domitian, right, when we're looking at the time frame around 295, right? Around 295, Domitian, he's oftentimes looked upon by Christian apologists as this guy who has just had a hard on from murdering Christians. That was his thing. He hated Christians. He wanted to destroy Christians. He wanted to kill all the Christians and persecute the hell out of them. When that is Christian myth, Christian lie. That wasn't Domitian's thing, right? Hey, Riri. Domitian's thing was, like all emperors of Rome, was to maintain the unity of the Roman Empire. Now, when I say that, I want you to think about the world today. The President of the United States, main thing is to keep the union. Abraham Lincoln, keep the Union. Let's fight the Civil War to keep the Union. What did Abraham Lincoln say? If I could have freed the slaves and kept the Union, I'd have done it. If I could have kept them enslaved and kept the Union together, I would have done it. It didn't really matter. It's about keeping the Union, the country together. So Dolitian's idea was, let's keep, he wanted to keep peace in Rome. And you got to understand their mindset at the time. So during this time, Christianity was spreading throughout Rome. It wasn't the most dominant religion in Rome, but it was spreading. One thing a lot of Christian apologists like to forget about is the fact that at the time frame, Christianity wasn't this holy, one unified kind of teaching. If you were in one country, they were teaching one thing. If you was in one city, if you was on one corner, it's kind of like today how there are 30,000 different denominations of Christianity. There were thousands of different variations of Christianity at the time frame that read different books, that believed in different things. So it wasn't like there was this golden age of Christianity going on, right? He said freeing the slaves saved the Union. That was the only reason, right? That was the only reason he did it. If he could, but Abraham said that if he could have kept them as slaves and kept the Union together, he would have done it that way too. But so Dolitian's thing was, let's keep it together. And there were so many different sects, and the primary sect of Christianity, the primary thoughts of Christianity were the Gnostics. The Gnostics were the primary thought process of Christianity. So there was a problem from like 295 up to about 303. You had a problem going on in Rome, in the Roman Empire. You had crops failing. You had the famines. You had all kind of natural disasters, things like that going on during that time frame. And for those people, they believed that if the crops didn't come in, it was a supernatural force at work, and the supernatural force for that region was at work. So if you were, say, in the Greek Isles, and the fish, good morning, good evening, how you doing, Nikki? The fish weren't coming in. It might have been red tide. It could have been, warm, unnaturally warmer water or colder water, whatever the rationale could have been going on naturally. It looks like I'm buffering again, but they could have been going on naturally. It could have been any of those things going on naturally. But those people would have said, with the Greeks who still worship the Greek gods and goddesses, they would have said, oh, we got to give sacrifice to Apollo. We got to give sacrifice to Neptune. We got to give sacrifice to, I know Neptune is the Roman name. I forgot the Greek name for the underwater dude. For the underwater god, for Zeus's brother. But we got to give offering to him. And because we're not giving offering to him, that's why the fish didn't come in. Well, what Dolitian's mind was saying is that if the fish aren't coming in the Greek region, and the Greek people who still, Poseidon, thank you. The Greek people are doing worship and they're sacrificing to Poseidon. Well, the reason why it's not coming in, because the Christians who are there, they're not recognizing Poseidon. So his thought process was, if that the Christians don't recognize and give sacrifice to the local gods of the region, then the local gods of the region are going to punish the people, punish the land, create unrest. It's not buffering on my laptop right there, Charles. But it's going to create unrest throughout the entire empire, right? And that unrest is going to destroy the empire. So this is Dolitian's thought process at the time frame. And it's not an unfounded thought process. If you go back to Vespasian, well, even before Vespasian, to Nero. Nero had a problem with the Jewish people. What Nero didn't understand is that the Jewish story and the Jewish teaching said that you can't have statues of any other god. So the Romans were like, well, you got to put just accept, you can have your god, but accept Caesar as a god as well. And the Jews were like, no. So that's why there was Jewish revolts happening throughout the Roman Empire, and why Vespasian had to come in and destroy the Jewish revolts by destroying the story. So here we are, 300 years later with Dolitian, and he's like, we still got this unrest, but instead of the Jews, it's the Christians, because they don't recognize the local gods. So Domitian comes out in 303 and says that, hey, guess what? This is what we're going to do. We got to get rid of Christianity. And this is where Christian apologists, and you may hear them talking about, oh, if they just poor Christians walking down the street and they just round them up, and if they needed a fire, they needed light, they just burn a Christian on a stake to provide light. This is where they get into all this stuff because they exaggerate what Domitian did. Domitian said that, look, here's the deal. We're going to burn all the church. We need to destroy all Christian churches, and we got to destroy all Christian writings. He understood what Vespasian did with the Druids. We got to destroy all their writings. So what he does is he puts that edict out because he was blaming the Christians for it, and the people went for it because the Christians didn't have any power. See, here's the thing back then. Christianity back then was not political like it is right now. Pastors didn't go and sit with presidents and saying, you the best black president, you did more for black people than any other president. You didn't see pastors running for office. Pastors weren't doing that as far as Christianity was concerned. It was more of a relationship with universe, because most of them were Gnostic, relationship with inner knowledge so that you can understand the outer knowledge. So they were reading the Gospel of Thomas, the secret writings of Peter, and those kinds of books. So they were understanding that aspect. So they weren't politicians. So they had no power. So it was easy for them to blame the Christians. And it was easily justified because they didn't worship they didn't give, at least they argued that the other people got false gods. Sounds similar today, right? Everybody got a false god. You know, I can't respect your God, but I'm gonna force you, and you better respect mine. Was the mentality back then? Still the mentality today. So Domitian said, we're gonna just destroy all their stuff, right? We're gonna just destroy it. But he had a hard time doing it, and he couldn't. Why? Because if you went to Egypt, they're reading the Gospel of Thomas, they're reading the secret writings of Mary, they're reading Jude, these people over here, they're reading Paul of Thecla, they're reading all these different writings so everybody was reading stuff that's from all over the place, so you couldn't destroy the writing because it wasn't put together. Everybody was just reading a bunch of different things. So there was no canon at the time. Hey, Wakila, how you doing? I'm proud of your event that you're having. I wish I could go. So that was Domitian's deal, and he was trying to keep the empire together. Now, so Domitian was trying to kill the religion, not the people. Now, that is not to say that Domitian didn't kill nobody. There were Christians who were murdered. There were Christians who were thrown in the Colosseum, who were burned at stakes. There were some of the more aggressive people who, when they were looking to destroy the churches and all those sort of things, that those people were killed, right? How you doing, Storm Jackson? So there were some that were killed, but it wasn't this ravaging, going out just hunting down Christians the way that the apologists would tell you that it happened, the way some of the history people would tell you. That's not what was going on during the time of Domitian. So we need to dispense with that myth and that idea right off the whip, that's not what was happening. So that was only now, because Domitian had that mindset, and all emperors have that mindset. And mind you, the Roman Empire became split. We got the Eastern and Western. Constantine I became emperor of the Eastern, and Maxentius and Lentius became the West, and they had their fights and their battles, their wars, and all this kind of stuff. And you know, I did the video where I talked about Constantine's big lie. And if you've seen that video, there's a portion of it that I left out because I just didn't want to get into it, right, in that video. But we can get into it on this one. And that's the fact that when Constantine first told a story, he told the story of, they just defeated the Maxentius at the Moldovan Bridge, right? Then it's like 313, and he's telling this, it's 313 or 318. I think it's 313. He's telling he's at Milan. They're trying to do this edict of Milan. And he tells the Christian bishops, before he tells the Christian bishops, he tells this one story to the people who worship, Apollo and Mithra and all them. He says that, hey, before the battle, I know that God is on my side because I saw Sol Invictus, I saw Sol Invictus, which is the unconquerable sun, came to me. and through that power of Sol Invictus. Now you got to understand, all people who win the battle always invoke their God. But he said that it was Sol Invictus. Right? Now when he told the Christian version, then he said that he still was saying that it was Sol Invictus, but he said that Sol Invictus is identical to the Christian God, to Jesus, right? So you have to understand, he said identical. Now you got to understand the Roman mind at that time frame. And this should be easy for you guys. Rome, the primary god for the Romans is Jupiter. He's identical to Zeus. He's identical to Pita. See, he's identical to Odin. The Roman god Hades is identical to Pluto. He's identical to Set. He's identical to Hela. You say, so he's identical. Not the same, not the exact same, but identical to the other one. And that is what Constantine said, that Sol Invictus is identical. And the reason why he used the term Sol Invictus is because for the higher ups in Rome who worship Apollo, the unconquerable sun, S-U-N, he's identical to Apollo. For those of the next level who worship Mithra, who's a solar deity, the unconquerable sun. So he's identical to this idea of Jesus, the unconquerable sun, the one that shines bright. So he's not proclaiming Christianity at this point. Matter of fact, he never proclaims Christianity. And when people say that during this time frame he was proclaiming his faith and he wanted to keep the faith together and draw in the faith, this is a fabrication, because the Catholic Church story, the Christian story, is that on his deathbed is when he converted to Christianity. So make up your mind. Did he do it on his deathbed or did he do it beforehand? Now, every statue, every monument that he built all had Mithra, Apollo, or it had himself as Sol Invictus. So we have to understand that at this Edict of Milan, during this time frame, that was his mindset. When he said they're identical, today people will say that, oh, he worshiped Jesus. No, he was saying that they share the same qualities and that sort of thing. So we have to get that truth in there. And here's the thing, we have to understand these things, because when people come at you and they're trying to like ram things at you, you have to be able to speak these things, that are exact. That doesn't leave room for arguing. And that's one of the lessons that you can learn from studying the Edict of Milan. I mean, not Edict, the Council of Nicea. The Nicene Creed was written to make sure that people didn't have anything else saying. We're going to get to that part. So, but he said he was identical, but he was not proclaiming a faith in Christianity. Like I said, that was the lie of his deathbed at that time frame. But the Edict of Milan didn't make Christianity the legal religion of Rome either. Christianity becoming the legal religion of Rome didn't happen until around 492 with Theodosius, right? That's when it became the only religion of Rome, and they went around killing everybody who disagreed. So during this time frame, it was just, we weren't going to persecute anyone anymore. How Domitian persecuted Christians, we're going to end persecution of Christians in any other religion. Like Constantine and he was there with Licentius. They were saying that we are going to establish freedom of religion. That's what we're saying. We're not going to persecute and kill people over it. We're not going to make it illegal. We're going to make them all legal, right? So that you can practice it. But they still needed people to be tolerant. So he was still having a problem and wanted to bring unity, because Christianity was threatening, just like Judaism was threatening during Nero's time. Christianity is now threatening the unity of Rome. Now Constantine knew from study that when his great-great-great-grandfather, adopted grandfather Vespasian, became emperor, that he destroyed the Druid story. He tried to change and destroy the Jewish story, but because of the Messiah idea, he couldn't destroy it. And now you got this religion that has the Messiah, and people are thinking that they're going to come out of this oppression. So he realized he has to reorganize it, because within the Christian religion, you had a massive argument, and this massive argument is the main purpose for the Council of Nicaea, and that is the argument between Arius and Alexander of Alexander, the Bishop of Alexander. His name was Alexander. This is around 319 is when the argument became like massive. And the argument wasn't over whether Christianity was real or fake, that sort of thing. The argument was over what and who is Jesus. What is it? And of course his name wasn't Jesus back then, but they called him, since this was the Romans, they would have been using the Greek name, so they would have been using the name Ius, right? So they were like, what is Ius? What is it? What is he? Is he divine? Is he the same as the Father, or is he separated and different from the Father? So let's look real quick at this argument. So you had Arius and Alexander around 319. They were arguing over what is Jesus. Is he a God? Is he a creator? Is he a creature? Is he a demigod? What else did I write back when I wrote this thing? I can't even read my own handwriting. So they were just trying to figure out what he was. I'm going to get more into what each one of them thought individually. So around 324, first Constantine tried to order Arius and Alexander to settle their argument. But he couldn't, but the ordering them to do it didn't work, right? So then in 325, he figured, I'm the emperor. I got all the Roman, I've got the Roman Empire under my, under control. We're going to have this big old council so that we can settle this thing and get Christianity squared away, because I can't have it disrupting the flow of the empire. Plus, the way Christianity is done, I can actually use it to control the people in the empire, because everybody can get down on this. We all worship the sun anyway, so let's do it. So they wanted to settle the difference between Arius and Alexander. And like I said, most of this is written by Arius and Alexander and Athanasius and Eusebius of Caesarea, right? Is where most of these sources are coming from. So these were people who were there. And of course, they all had their own political agenda. But Arius believed that God was a supreme God, and that the Word was actually some kind of creature. Now, what's interesting about this, if you go read John, I think it's in the third, John 3, that's John 3:16. So, in the beginning, what's the word? Yeah, John 3:16. If you read a Greek version of it, it reads, in the beginning was the Word, and that Word was a God, and that God was towards the God, and that God and the God, and it just goes into this whole thing like that. Like, go find a Greek version of it, a true Greek translation, and it's like calls the word a God, and that God was towards the God, So it's like that God is looking at that God, but and it calls it a God and that God, and then there's the God, so it's substandard. See, Arius and Alexander did believe that Jesus was subordinate, but it's what the makeup of Jesus was. So he said that, or I use for them in their terminology at that time frame, that it was supreme, that the Word was a creature that was created, that the Word can be changed and the Word can sin, but it was still good enough. The Father found enough good in it that it kept it, and it said he also said that the Word, just that Jesus was just a vessel and could become a God just like anybody else can become a God. Through the process of sainthood, you become a God. Through that same process they use for sainthood today is how you became a God in the teachings of Arius. So I think it's interesting how that similarity is still there, right? It's so different. So, but then here's one part that of Arius is thinking and teaching, which is why Arius was Gnostic, more of a Gnostic, and this is why they hated, one of the reasons why they hated him so much and had to get rid of him, because of his Gnostic views. But Arius also believed that God, the Father, the primary, and if you saw my live earlier today where I talked about the all in all, it's a Hermetic understanding from the Kabbalion, from the Emerald Tablets, of the all in all, part of the law of mentalism, that if you something that is supreme being, the supreme creative mind, can't be divided. It can't be take a section of itself off and be something else. It can't be split. Because as soon as it splits off a little piece of itself, it's no longer complete. It's no longer the creator. It's no longer the all. It's not no longer omnipotent. So Arius did not believe that the creator could separate itself from itself. Because if it was the creator and it separated itself from itself, then it would always know that it is itself. So at no point when the statements of Yeshua saying that, why have you forsaken me, and talking about doing his father's bidding, he would have always known he's doing his bidding. He would have never been forsaken, because he can never forget who he is or separate himself. So Arius didn't believe. Arius was more Gnostic in that viewpoint, and Arius was also more Hermetic in that thinking, because he was saying that the supreme deity can't be separated, right? And can't be divided. And because of but then he kind of like flips it, and he said that the supreme deity needed the word as an instrument in order to do his creation, which is weird, because if the supreme deity needs anything, then it's lacking something. And if it's lacking an ability or something, or has to do something like impregnate a 12-year-old girl and then walk around, then it is failing to be the creative, the all omnipotent, omnipresent being that it claimed to be. You say, yeah, the way it's worded changes the knowledge. It does, the way it's worded. But that's what, you got it. You guys, I'm telling you, go out, find you. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Let's see. See if I can find it. I had a book of it. I'm telling you, I'm so irritated. My sister, I lost like, so it's not John 3:16. I'm saying John 3:16. It's not John 3:16. When is it that it says that? Is it when it's all that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and that Word was with the God, and that God, and all that crap? Yeah, it's John 1:1. Sorry. So I misquoted. For all those who are going to say, see, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Because if you did, how can you misquote that? Because I don't read your Bible anymore, for the most part. But you got to find a true Greek translation. Right, thanks, Pop. Yeah, it's 1:1. You got to find a true Greek translation. And it's going to be hard, because I'm going to tell you, things have certainly changed a lot over the years. When I when I first read that true Greek translation, it was based on a request from the Library of Congress back in the like before the internet came out in like 1990, 89, 90. The internet has filled itself up with making sure you don't get that kind of information anymore. That where it breaks it down and says like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was a God, and that God was towards the God. Mm-hmm. Give me a second here. I'm gonna have to find it, because I don't like stopping like this. That drives me crazy. Um, but I didn't know I was gonna say that today, so I didn't go ahead and find it beforehand. But go research that. Go find it. Yeah. So we're gonna continue. We'll continue. We'll continue. We'll come back to that later. But somebody's gonna find it. Somebody's gonna find it, and then they're gonna give us the link of where they found it. That was it. So that's y'all mission. Go find that true Greek one of John 1, and then put the link in this video. Put the link in the comments. So back to it, because that's not what we were mainly talking about tonight. but it does change your thought process. It's one of the things that changed my thought process in the late 80s, early 90s when I read it, a true Greek one from the Library of Congress that said that in the beginning there was the word, and the word was a God. I was like, what? Now, yeah, and some people are going to argue that, oh, Greek doesn't have the letter A, don't have A's and An's, so it was added. But in order to translate it over into English, you have to add the A's and An's. Um, it's the beauty of language. So that was Arius's thought process of it. So what was Alexander's thought? Alexander did think that, and this is the Bishop of Alexander, the Bishop of Alexandria in Egypt. He thought that the Logos was sub to the Father. Sorry, my voice was coming through that. Was sub to the voice of the Father, but that the Word was eternal. You see, Arius said that the Word was created. It's a created creature. Alexander said that no, the Word has always been there. It's always eternal, and it's always. But he did say it's resupplied. Its energy is resupplied by the Father at all times. So he did say it's subordinate, but it was always there. That in order for the Father to be the Father, he had to have a Son. So the Son had to always be there for the Father to have always been the Father. Now, I thought that was interesting because it's like, why does the Father have to be the Father? There's a time frame when I wasn't a father. I was just Lorenzo. Then I had children. Then I became a father. So it's something I became. But that's what Arius was saying. That the Word was created. But Alexander saying that the Word has always been eternal. That the Word separated itself from the Father. It's separate from it, but it's just lower. But it is just like the Father. It is an image of the Father, and that it can't change. It doesn't change. So this was the big argument that was going on, and it was causing fractures. Because you can imagine if the majority of Christianity at the time was Gnostic, then the majority of people would have been reading books and reading different books that agreed with Arius. But the bishops who was at the Council of Nicea, they agree with Alexander. And it's political. Alexander of Alexandria was a member of the Alexander family that has been part of Roman government and had power. They were very powerful. They had a lot of money. They were the family of tax collectors in the Roman Empire for Egypt in that area. So very powerful family. They were married into the Herod family. They also were married into the Flavians. They had family relations in the Flavians. So this was an incredibly politically connected and powerful family. And so their version won, basically, because they were powerful. But their version also won because this version gives you more control over the religion and the people. So Alexander wins this argument. And that was the main reason the Council of Nicaea was brought together. Now from that you had the Nicene Creed was created. The original creed, all but 18 Arius and 17 other bishops and clergy would not sign it. And they would have probably eventually signed it if a change hadn't been made. The original creed, and I'm not going to read the creed, but the original creed, which just basically creates your Trinity, of who Jesus is, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived, performed miracles, that he died and rose up on the third day and saves people, your salvation, all that kind of stuff, and he is with God and all this kind of stuff. It had the language at first and it ended with, it was all done in the Holy Spirit, right? And that's how it ended. But that left an opportunity for people like all the other Gnostics and Arius and these other people, these Paulinians, to argue their point that argue their Gnostic point of Jesus not being God, the Holy Spirit not being God, that they are separate, that there is no real Trinity of one. So they added, after the first draft, the second draft then droned on and on and on. You guys gotta go read it for yourself. But it droned on and on and on about that if anybody say that that the Word and Jesus were not the same, and the Word and Jesus weren't created. If they was created, that they wasn't internal. That that it just everything that Arius was arguing, that it took it away. They said if you did that and you said all of that, then you are cursed. Now, one thing I found interesting about that, didn't Jesus say that you are to love your neighbors, love your enemies, and not curse them? But they said that you're cursed. But you're supposed to love your enemies and not curse them. That would say. That would have said. So I thought that was interesting that here they are perpetuating the story, but yet they're cursing people and saying that you're cursed and you're to be kicked out of the church and all that kind of stuff. Kicking, not well excommunicated, but the other word, not excluded, exile. That you're exiled, right? So that was that. Now that was the main reason for the Council of Nicaea. That was the main reason. Now after that, you had it took a long time for the Council of Nicaea, the Nicene Creed, to be adopted. It took a couple of centuries for it to be truly adopted throughout all of the Roman Empire. Really, Theodosius in 492, once he took over and started killing everybody who didn't agree with them, that's when it started taking over. Yes, it is a mess. It's a whole big old mess. Now, one of the reasons why people think that biblical canon, came out of the Council of Nicaea is because one of the secondary things that they talked about was church canon. They wrote 20 different church canons, which have been changed over the years, and they're still changed. And these church canons really just identify how the church will function, how it's governed, and that sort of thing. When people who have been excommunicated or kicked out, how do you bring them back? Those who walked away, how do you bring them back? The reason why they don't get rid of their priests is because they got church canon to bring them back into the priesthood when they go out here and committing all these sexual crimes. So they wrote 20 different canons. One canon is very funny to me because they acknowledge women as deaconesses, as a deaconess, but then they said they have no hand, and they are to be counted as the regular people. Here's the thing about that. Most people will read that and not really get it, but to say that they have no hand, mean they have, in Roman talk back then, that means they have no power. That women are powerless and they don't deserve power, and they don't have the ability to have power. So to take away, say they act like deacons, and they women, but no power. So I always thought so they had 20 canons like that, and that's part of the confusion about canons. The other part of the confusion about canon is that Eusebius of Caesarea, he wrote out a list of books that should be considered for canon, but he was just kind of like the historian who was this, that, and they really wasn't giving him that much, credence. But so they really didn't pay him much attention. But he wrote out a list of books and scriptures that should be counted towards Christianity, towards this new thing that they was organizing, right? Because that was the other thing. It's about organizing it, getting rid of some of the problems and the strife. And it was the beginning of the organization of these ecumenical councils and things like that. So Eusebius wrote a list of what should be what should be read, what should be authorized, and that's one reason why some people have questions about, is this canon, is that canon? Another two things that was talked that happened. Another thing about canon is you had Athanasius of Alexandria. He was like a young bishop back then, but then he grew up in power like over the next 20, 40 years after the Council of Nicaea. But so the thing about Athanasius is one of the other issues that they settled was Easter. They had to settle Easter. Easter was a problem. Easter was being celebrated all over the Roman Empire at different times. Because here's the reason why. Because spring happens at different times all over that region. If you're in Egypt, spring is different than it is if you're in Britain. If you're you're in Palestine, spring is different than when you're, in Portugal. So it's different. So spring had its different time frames. People were celebrating it different. Now remember, Easter is a Babylonian holiday that was merged the um, with the Franks, and it was merged with everybody. Really, everybody had a spring holiday, and it was always a woman. It was merged with the Greeks. It was merged with everybody. So whether you call it Easter, Astoria, Inanna, whomever, they all had this female deity of spring, of fertility. So, and it happened somewhat around the same time as the Jewish calendar. Well, they didn't want to deal with the Jewish calendar. They didn't want to deal with the Jewish timing of it all because they had already had problems with Vespasian dealing with the Jewish people, and they still having problems with the Jewish people. Now we got Christians, who is just an offset of the Jewish people. And so Easter, we got to nail this thing down. So they said Easter is going to follow the pattern of Alexandria and Rome. Now the problem they didn't realize is that Alexandria and Rome still celebrate Easter two separate times. It took them a few decades to figure it out, right? Thought the jackrabbit was using the jackrabbit. Okay. So, oh right, yeah. What it had, the rabbit was for a sign of fertility. The rabbit, the egg. There's the Ankh as well. You remember Nana? She held an Ankh as well. So, which represented everlasting life, represented the uterus and the fallopian tube, all that sort of thing. But so Easter had to be set. Now, what Athanasius was doing is every year he would send out. Where did the bunnies come from? Well, the bunnies are symbols of fertility. They're just fertility symbols. You see the bunny with Astoria and Nana. They're symbols of fertility. So that's what they represent. Yeah, even the way Nicaea is spelled, look up the word for the word nice. And actually, we say Nicea, but it should be Caesea. Is how it should be pronounced with a K and not with an N, but it should be Caesea. But oh yeah, so Athanasius, every year he would send out a letter to let people know when to celebrate Easter. So he was doing this every year. And as he was growing in power, he was sending this out every year. And then he started sending out with the letters 27 books that should be canon. And those 27 books eventually became the canon. It took, now you gotta understand, by the time he wrote his 39th letter of festival, that is when people started saying these are the 27 books we should read. So think about it like this. For 39 years, he sends out, hey, it's time to celebrate Easter, joyous, beautiful time, the year of our Lord, blah, 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 whatever he put in there, whatever romanticized language he uses. And we should be reading, these are the 27 books that we should be reading for representing Christianity. First year, okay. Second year, okay. After year, and you're reading, this dude is listing the same books over and over again. People start reading the same books over and over again. People start reading this letter, and everybody starts recognizing he all of a sudden becomes the subject matter expert. He becomes authority because he's writing the same thing. What did Hitler say? If you tell a lie long enough and loud enough, it becomes truth. So Athanasius, for 39 years, kept writing the same list of 27 books. He's not changing it. He's not trying to make it any, trying to like make other people in this, or people in Smyrna, they like these books, I'm gonna put them books. Or the people over here in Thessalonica, they like these books, I'm gonna put these books. The Britons, they like this, I'm gonna put these books. No, it's the same 27 books. So after 39 years of doing this, people start accepting his 27 books as canon, right? And he is actually one of the first persons to use the terminology of canon. So the canon wasn't put together at the Council of Nicaea, but somebody who was at the Council of Nicaea, who supported the Trinitarian idea, who was very much against the Gnostic idea, who was very concerned about the celebration of Easter, that dude from that council kept writing letters saying what the 27 books should be, did not like Eusebius of Caesarea, so he made sure he kept putting out his 27. It's kind of like the way the Jehovah's Witness started. They kept putting a pamphlet out and people started believing it. So he kept putting his pamphlet out and people started believing it. But it still took about 700 years before the canon to really solidify, because the book of Revelation was still argued up into the Council of Laodicea, I believe. It was argued up into that, like 10 something at the Council of Laodicea. It was argued up until that point. So you got still 700 years before those 27 books became official canon. All right. So those were the main. That was the main. Oh yeah, and there was another main thing they talked about. They talked about the schism of. There was a schism in Egypt during Domitian's time. The Melithian schism, which is when Christians were persecuted by Domitian. There was this one dude who was persecuted, but he wanted them to reinstate him and all the other people, and they said, well, you got to give up that Gnostic stuff, and we'll reinstate you. So that was the other main issue that they talked about. There was nothing else really major that they talked about during this council, but I was thinking when I came across these notes earlier this week that when we are talking about these things, we have to really understand where all of this comes from, because this stuff has affected the world to this day. These ideas and practices have affected how people live every day. If Athanasius wasn't around, these 27 books wouldn't be the 27 books. If Arius would have won, then a Gnostic view would have been the viewpoint of Christendom at the time, which still would have gave people so much freedom that the Roman government probably still would have shut them down and flipped it to something else. One thing that was interesting to me that I wanted to discuss is that how Domitian thought that it's the Christians' fault that the crops didn't come in. How Constantine thought that, we are Sol Invictus helped me defeat these people, and because I defeated them, that's why I won. Too many times people can, even in today's world, we look at, people say, oh, God led me to this, or God brought this person into my life. How many times have you met somebody and they said, oh, God has brought this husband into my life, me, my husband, and me, my wife, or whatever, and God put us together and all that kind of stuff, but then 10 years later they get divorced. So was God just playing with you? Was he just like saying, well, this is just 10 years? And then they'll say, oh, he was just here for a season, she was just here for a season. We have to stop making up. People have to stop making up reasons for what goes on in their life and blaming some supreme deity for it, or giving credit to a supreme deity for it. Where I live is some crazy name company called Snapping Shoals EMC. If I wanted to thank somebody for my electricity being on right now, I need to thank the technicians at Snapping Shoals EMC. Because those technicians is what's making it possible for this light to be on. The ones who did the wiring. The ones who making sure that the transformers are working right. Thank you, transformers, people who working on those things. My wife, this video was buffering like a big dog earlier. Whoever at AT&T fixed it, God didn't fix it at AT&T. Somebody else did. Now people are going to say that, well, God gave them the knowledge. Did he? Or did they go study and learn and understand the knowledge of it? Did people watch how birds fly and how lift works to figure out flight? Did God give them the knowledge, or they just watched and they observed and they figured it out? Did we figure out certain things like the blood transfusion and certain things in chemistry by watching and testing and analysis and results, and then take those results and let's test it and watch it again? Edison tried to make a light bulb 1,000+ times. If God was doing it for him, why the hell he got to go through 1,000+ times? He could just, boom, time one. Didn't he have to do it that way? Just do it. If anything, the Sumerians told you how God would work, because the Sumerians, they just said, hey, we ain't know shit about irrigation. The God showed us how to irrigate. We ain't know Jack Dempsey about all this construction. The God showed us this. We didn't know about medicine. The God showed us this. They just was like, the gods did all this stuff. We ain't know nothing about it. They just did it. They did it. They showed us, and then we just replicated what they showed us. But for some reason, we run around, got to give all this credit for stuff that you're doing, stuff that other people are doing. You cook the food. You got the job. You work. You got your check. You budget your money. You buy the food. You cook the food, and then you give God thanks for the food. You a fool. That. And people are going to say, well, God created all these things to put it in. No. I do believe in an intelligent, infinite, intelligent being mindset, infinite mind that created everything in the universe, the universal laws. But it is what we do with those things that we are co-creating with all that. That gravity exists. Now, because gravity exists, I didn't create gravity. I didn't create it. But it's up to me to use gravity in order to make things better for me. I didn't create fire, but I can either use fire to destroy or I can use fire to renew things or to heal things. Because I remember when I got that piece of glass in my foot, and my grandma, when she put that needle in that fire and she dug it out and it got the glass out, but it cauterized it at the same time. So yes, I still suffer from painful memories. But we can't, people do that all the time, and that's what we battle against because they can always say, well, God created it, well, God, but there's always a cause and effect to everything, to everything. And eventually you do get to the point where you say, okay, gravity just exists. I don't know how I got here, but gravity's here. And we just figure out how to use it. But there's no God that's just dropping knowledge in my head. You got to study for it. Uh-oh, I did something. You got to study for that thing so you can understand it. I did something. Okay, let's see what y'all been saying. The only thing that requires no proof of existence is Jesus God. Everything else in life has to be proven. Exactly. That should and it should tell you something about it. That doesn't need any proof. And people get God credit for everything they do. Exactly when you're doing it. If one of you guys were to, like, if I had a flat tire and you came to pick me up or help me out, I'm not gonna thank God that you came to pick me up. I'm gonna thank the fact that I had a phone and I called you and you are friend enough to show up and help me out. I'm thanking you for it. They probably sense it comes from the hidden source of power, but they attach a name to it. Right, and see, if we think about it, Domitian, Constantine, all these people back in history always attached what they did not know to an unforeseen, unseen God or goddess. And for some reason, we take their writings and their thought process as if they were so on point with that. I'm really not going to. Would you take? You ain't taking the advice of the guy standing on the corner who's saying that, God is gonna rain down fire on us and that sort of thing. I'm not talking to that guy who just said that because because that's the reason why black guys are being shot in the street because black people have forsaken their ancestral gods of Africa. We've forsaken our ancestors, and that's why we're being gunned down in the streets by the police. No. Being gunned down by the police in the streets of America because America is a racist ass country that continue to perpetuate the myth that the losers who wanted racism, who subjugated black people, were still victorious and are heroes. And that teaching of separating the people and that sort of and that black people are of less value, and the myth that black people try to rob and kill you all the time, that the media concocted, the media created that, and then we will perpetuate it ourselves by the way some of our youth and some of our people are acting. We'll perpetuate it and give them the ammunition to put the stories up there of black people killing black people. So the white people being afraid of black people, white people having a mindset that they are superior than black people, it's not a God that's doing that because black people walked away from their ancestors or black people were sailed away on some damn ships like the Hebrew Israelites be talking. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It got something to do with how this country has been raised and how this country continue to raise people and how we continue to raise our children and how we act and deal with society, whether or not we want to infiltrate the government. If we sit back and just complain and beg the government to do something instead of building wealth and building and infiltrating the governmental systems and the societal system and taking over, and I mean really taking over, not the BS takeover. If we don't do that, then it's not a Nancy doing anything. It's not Hero. It's not a Set and a Sar who's punishing us. It ain't Jesus, Yahweh, Allah, Buddha. And they ain't punishing black people. We're doing it to our damn self. Doing it to ourselves because we won't fight the battle the way it has to be fought today. We can't fight it how they fought it in the 50s and 60s. We have to fight it differently. So, and the way you fight it now is economic. Economic and gaining political control. Right? They want us to rely on hope. If you are addicted to hope, then you will always believe you can't do anything without it. And you're right. I don't believe in hope. People come by my business and they'll say that, man, I hope you do well. And I tell them, I say, I don't believe in hope. I believe in the fact that I am doing well and I will continue to do well and do even better. I don't have time for hope. I correct everybody who comes by my business and say some bullshit about hope because I don't need your hope energy trying to overwhelm my this is just what it's going to be energy. Because then I might start saying hope. I might start feeling hope. I might start wanting hope. I don't want hope. Hope is always lacking. I don't have time to lack nothing. Lack just doesn't function with me. All these damn I ams up here, and I do them in reverse as well. I ain't got time to be in lack. I gotta have facts. I gotta have it right then. I gotta know what it is and deal with what it is exactly, and make it work. So all that hope bull, but they do want to keep us on hope because that's the big pacifier. It keeps you pacified, and you sucking on the pacifier and not getting any nutrients because you're holding on to some hope. Alex said, Coach, can you explain when some spiritual individuals indicate that they channel archetypes? What does the revelation and energy of the answer come from? Is it coming from the person's own mind? You got doggone right it's coming from the person's own mind. Okay, so here's the thing about archetypes when people are channeling. Do we have spirits, people's consciousness who have left this understanding? Sure. They are in different dimensional. Do I believe they're in as above, so below? Lower correspondence talks about there are different dimensional planes. Do I believe that? Am I saying that they may exist on different dimensional planes? Sure. Jacob's ladder, spirits coming up and down the ladder, different levels. Right. So sure, they're moving around. Your consciousness, your brain is a receiver to connect with different astral projected levels. So when you're channeling, you're drawing in the information from them. The guy called it the Akashic record, but it's all inside you. All of that is inside. All the information from all your answers, all the information from source, all the information from universal knowledge is inside you. So when you channel in the archetype, you're channeling that portion of yourself. Like when I do a magic spell and I'm calling on the name of Renenute, I'm not literally calling for the deity idea of Renenute. I'm just talking about the traits that Renenute represents that are already embodied in me. So yes, you're calling for your own inner energy, your own your connections with source energy, that you have access to the source energy at all times, access to source information at all times. That's why you can complete and do anything that you want to do. You can have anything you want to have because it's already built inside you. That's why Muhammad Ali was like, that it's all inside of him. That song Whitney Houston had that people, I don't know, I thought she was talking about a baby. That actually was a song from Muhammad Ali, and he's saying that the greatest is inside of himself. So it's all in you. But yeah, it's coming from you. It's a good way of putting it. I don't know. Oh, that hope part, hope energy. That's a serious problem that the black folks in Chicago have. Want to march, hoping, hoping Dr. King will come back and hoping that exactly all that hope crap. But think about it. If the government can keep you marching and hoping, then they still got control of you because then they ain't got to do nothing. Because you'll march. Who's marching now? Who's still marching for the stuff that happened 5 years ago? Most people don't even remember the stuff that happened 5 years ago. Dollar. I usually do shows with Kevin, but since he's recovering, I decided to go ahead and do a show tonight. I have started doing a show on Sunday morning at 10:30. So if you guys want to tune into that. Inner activation. That's right. Got that inner activation. Rika said, I want to know whose ancestors are we calling and connecting if we are reborn as different races. Ooh, girl. All right, I'm going to start some mess. Okay, y'all ready for me to lose some subscribers? I'm about to lose some subscribers. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? If you saw my video earlier today, or if you are part of my Patreon, then you know I talked about we talk about the divine paradox. All right? All right, hold on, we about to talk about vibration and energy. Divine paradox. Divine paradox says that that on this consciousness right now, on this third dimensional plane, this matter plane, I hate saying third dimension because we don't know what the hell dimension we on, but this matter plane of existence, I'm melanated, I'm black. In a higher consciousness, a higher dimensional plane, I'm just energy. This is all vibrating. This is not matter. This doesn't exist, but yet it does exist. But on the higher planes of consciousness, it doesn't exist. It just matters. It's energy. It's vibrating, right? Everybody's energy. Your energy. Your energy. You get energy. You get some energy. You get some energy. Everybody's energy. So there's no such thing as race. There's no such thing as race. So when your ancestors leave the physical form, the poverty of the flesh, they exist with no race. If every ancestor that has ever existed is in your DNA, because we're all attached to each other. You remember that thing, 6 degrees of separation? There's only 6 degrees separation between you and everybody else. If we do go back in time, back, even if you go with the Sumerians, you eventually get to one humanoid species and one Anunnaki sperm, egg and sperm, get together, boom. And then multiples. Everybody came from the same thing. All you black people say that all humanity started in Africa. And if all humanity started in Africa and the Akashic record is inside of your DNA of everything, of every ancestor you ever had, then everybody's your freaking ancestor. Everybody. So yeah, sometimes I call on my ancestor, Andrew Carnegie, when I want to do some $1 billion kind of stuff. Because in some form or fashion, somehow through some trail of DNA family member, Andrew Carnegie is a distant relative. But he is one. Mansa Musa, distant relative. Sun Tzu, distant relative. Napoleon, distant relative. Shaka Zulu, distant relative. Some dude named Kung Kong Pong, distant relative. Everybody's a distant relative. So when I call, for the people that I know of their character, of what I'm trying to pull out of myself, and I call on that archetype of them, that mentality, that energy of them, they all my damn relative. They all my ancestors. Because this melanation don't mean jack shit when you leave this consciousness. And if you're a conscious person today, melanation in your skin shouldn't mean anything. The fact that white people may oppress black people in America, there's a systematic racist system. Yes, we have to understand it. Yes, we have to fight against it. Yes, we have to deal with it. But when it comes to your conscious being of how you act in this world, how you move in this world, for you to be racist towards somebody else because of their color, for you to elevate yourself over someone else because of your color, your consciousness, it ain't up here, it's actually down here. So I call on all the ancestors, every last one of them. If there's something about somebody, male, female, black, white, Asian, I don't give a dang. If I can learn from them and be better, I'm going to learn from them and be better. And I don't understand how you can call yourself conscious if you're still racist. That don't make no sense whatsoever to me. That's like a oxymoron. So I'm sure I lost some people. I'm sure I lost some subscribers on that one. It's okay. Y'all be all right. You said, where are they? What are they doing? Why aren't they helping? The ancestors is inside you. It's about you pulling that energy, pulling that archetype out of yourself. But those higher levels of vibration, matter equals carbon. What colors the mountain, soil, the pales, hate, what's called racism equals melanated envy. You know, before they were racist, and they weren't even dealing with black people, the Irish hated the Scottish. So what are you gonna call that? What kind of envy is that? The Scottish hated the English. What kind of hatred was that? The Japanese hated the Chinese. What was that? The Zulus hated the Ashanti. What was that? They all black. People will find a way to hate somebody. They'll find a way to separate themselves and be different. Melanation ain't got nothing to do with it. Ooh, okay, y'all going too fast. Oh, I trust and believe Carnegie used energy. Carnegie used energy. He studied the Hermetics. He was studying magic. Carnegie was studying the higher planes of existence. On Big Dog, he was studying the Emerald Tablets, all that stuff. He wasn't some little people who excel at the highest degrees usually do things totally different than everybody else. How would you explain their racist hate? Because they was taught, just like black people are taught. If you grew up in the Nation of Islam back in the 1940s, you would have been taught to be racist as hell towards white people. You would have been. Just like you go to some Arab areas and they're taught to be racist as hell towards black people, to be racist as hell towards white people. They're taught to be racist. You go to certain areas of Japan and you're taught to be racist as hell towards black people. In areas of China, some of them are taught to be racist towards black people. You're trained to be racist. Trained. Because when you come over as a baby, you're blank. So it's all part of the system. It's just like I was saying in my video earlier today. When I lived in Germany, the Germans who were my age were not racist on the whole because they were taught that Hitler was a scumbag. They were taught that everybody who followed Hitler was a simpleton scumbag and that they was wrong and that they should never be emulated. Not like how 20-year-olds who were in America at the same time that I was 20 were taught that Robert E. Lee is a hero and the Confederacies those people were heroes. So the teachings that you give people determines whether or not they're going to be racist or not. If you took two kids, put them on an island by themselves, one black, one white, they will not develop racism. That white kid is not going to hate the black kid. He's not going to be envious of the black kid, nor will the black kid be towards the white kid. They just two damn kids on an island trying to survive. That's it. But this society creates that. And if you want to use that as a reason to scapegoat your life, or to scapegoat why things are happening, or why this and why that, you can find a rationale for why certain things are happening. Why black kids get shot in the street, why it's harder for black people to get jobs, why the black man suffers, why they elevated the black woman into college and that sort of thing so they can satisfy two requirements on the she's a woman and she's a minority and she's a woman. There's all kind of things like that go on. But we have to recognize that that's the divine paradox. We deal with it, but it really doesn't exist. And because it really doesn't exist, if we can get into a higher level of consciousness, we can get rid of it. We can get rid of it. And I've been in countries where, as a black man, I didn't experience any racism whatsoever. Hell, I didn't experience any in Germany. White people oppress us because of the Bible. Black people oppress black people because of the Bible too. But yeah, white people do use the Bible for oppression. They made it all white. They make everybody in there white except for the foolishness of Samson. But yeah, they use it. People are always going to, if people can, they will use those things to, oppress another person. It's something about the human need to oppress people, to find the negative in humanity and negative in other people and oppress them. There's a something broken inside of humanity that says that I gotta hold you down, that I gotta make sure that you suffer. And there's a joy that we take out of it, which is a sad thing, because people are more apt to watch a video of people fighting and beating the tar shit out of each other than they are to watch two people who just love each other and who are friendly to each other and are getting along. We rather watch controversy. Look at all those shows, those Maury Povages and all them kind of shows. People get off on those shows, and they're so freaking negative. Divorce court is the negative thing. Why would you want to watch people getting divorced, breaking up marriages, watch people suing each other? We rather watch the most negative crap. We got a broken thing inside of us that we really got to fix, because that level of consciousness is just destroying us. Right? Why do my relatives hate us so freaking much? Which relatives are you talking about there, Shondale? Miss Hill said that reverse racism is flawed. It's not ridiculous on her blog on Tumblr. I don't know who Miss Hill is, and I don't like those terms. Reverse racism. Racism is just racism. If you hate somebody simply because of the color of their skin, then you're a racist. If you think that somebody has a certain character, that their character is determined by their color of their skin, you're racist. Black, white, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I know of black guys who are racist as hell towards Asian people. And they've had experiences that created it for them, but racism is just racism. I don't try to separate them. Um, Hate is more than skin color, but skin color impacts more people. And hate is more than skin. I mean, we'll find. Like I said, that's why. Like one of the reasons why I started to realize that man just has a need to hate people is when I first started recognizing that when people didn't have another race to hate, they hated people because of nationalities. They hated people because of you're from the north and I'm from the south. Being growing up in the south, you're not as smart because you're from the south. You speak with a southern drawl, so you're dumb. Dealing with those kind. The first time I met people from New York and all that kind of stuff who came to Atlanta, and they was like, y'all some stupid old southerners. Y'all talk all slow and all that kind of stuff. Like, uh, one, we're communicating and we have no reason to rush our speech pattern just so that you feel better. And the fact that your command of the English language is subpar to mine, then maybe you're the one who's slow and dumb. I couldn't understand these people because they're stupid. To say that you're better than somebody because of where you grew up. That's why I hate when people like, okay, so y'all know I'm in the gourmet popcorn business. Like one of the things I can't stand is when these people come up to me and they say, "Oh, we from Chicago, so we know popcorn." No, you don't. You have a very well-known popcorn shop up there, and who serve four flavors. You know four flavors of popcorn. That don't mean you know popcorn. They'll say, "Oh, I'm a popcorn connoisseur. I eat popcorn every night." You eat buttered popcorn every night. Does not make you a connoisseur. That's like somebody saying, "I eat McDonald's hamburgers every day, so I'm a hamburger connoisseur." No, you have to go to more than one place and eat different kind of things to be a connoisseur of something. But people have this thing about just because you're from somewhere that makes you better, makes you smarter, puts you in the know. It's like Texas people saying they know barbecue better than anybody else because they from Texas. Your parents could suck at cooking barbecue. Your neighborhood could suck at barbecue. That being from a place means nothing. But we put so much pride into where we're from and what we look like and all this kind of stuff that all we're doing is creating separations of hate. That's it. Say reverse rate. Is it a racer? Is it racist or a reaction to racism? If you're if somebody tries to attack me because I'm black and I respond to defend myself, it's a reaction. But if I see some white people and I go and attack them, or I think that, or I just automatically don't trust all white people or something like that, then I'm being racist. If I prejudge somebody, I'm being racist. It's not a reaction. It's not always a reaction. It's not. It's just like if a cop get behind me. Do I feel some anxiety when a cop gets behind me in America? Sure, I certainly do. It's a reaction to all the crap that goes on. But do I actually know that not every cop is a bad cop, that most cops are actually good cops? Of course I do. But I'm still going to have that anxiety. But that doesn't mean I go out shooting cops or I hate cops. I'm not going to hate all cops because of the other ones. That's just not going to happen. But do I get the anxiety? I'm a black man in America. Shit, yeah, I get that anxiety. And in the South. Yes. Okay, y'all going faster than I can read these things now. Okay, my bad for saying scapegoating if that's what you wasn't doing. Yep, Kevin is doing well. Um, of course, I don't know how to call people and be all sympathetic, be like, "Oh man, I hope that everything's all right. I know you're going through stuff." I was like, "Man, why don't you snatch that damn feeding tube out your?" I'm gonna pick on you no matter what, but he's doing well. Of course, he's not ready to get back on and do shows, but he's cool. Um, Thurston House said he got locked up and released on his own thing. I've had, I'm be honest with you, I've never had a bad experience with a police officer. Um, I've had police officers let me go more times than they've given me a ticket. And trust me, I deserved a lot of tickets because lead foot is all up in here. These feet just heavy. So let's see, what did Gen C say? The human need to want to be right first and powerful instead of believing in the ultimate love of peace and kindness. People are blind. Exactly. And people do have a need to be right. You know, a funny thing about that, I was married to a woman who argued and argued and argued and argued and argued and argued. And when I asked her one time, why do you argue all the time? And she told me, I just want to be right sometimes. She was like, you and your kids are so smart. I just want to be right sometimes. And I thought that was the stupidest thing in creation. I'm sorry. I study a lot. And because I study a lot, my kids have a tendency to emulate their parents. So my kids study a lot. And then we talk about a lot of these things because we take a lot of road trips. So I talk to my kids about a lot of stuff. So my kids know a bunch of stuff. I used to always tell my kids, we could go into Family Feud or Jeopardy and just run game on that thing because we got so much useless information in our head. I know stuff about stuff that I have no reason to know. But if we focus on just taking care of our basic needs, staying out of other people's business, doing what's best for ourselves, and then doing what's best for our community, the world will be a much better place. It'll never be perfect, but it'll be a much better place. We could literally end hunger and end homelessness in one generation, except for the people who want to be homeless and who want to be hungry. What if you don't hate them? You're just cautious of them due to history of the country, and that is what I can understand. I can understand being cautious because, like I said, I'm cautious when I get pulled over by a police officer. When I see a police officer, I'm cautious because I'm a black man, and I understand what the current climate is. I'm with you on that one. Yeah, Chicagoans can be stupid, hence the shooting. Yeah, and they can't. See, I ain't gonna put it on all Chicago people. It's that arrogant thing. It's like we have to detach ourselves from these little labels. You guys know I've said it 50, 11 times. Like Kierkegaard, I quote Kierkegaard all the time with the moment you label me, you negate me. I won't. I'll tell you I was born and raised in Atlanta in Marietta, Georgia, but I'm not an Atlantean. I'm not a Marietan, whatever we want to call ourselves. I would never claim to be. I only claim to be an American for when I have to. Like if I'm going to travel to another country and I got to have a passport, then yeah, I got to claim it. But beyond that, I'm not trying to claim a nationality. I don't like labels because if you put a label on me, then I got to live up to the label. And I'm not trying to live up to anybody's the only thing I'm living up to is how high can I raise my consciousness and what can I accomplish in this existence? How can I enjoy the most life in this existence? How can I leave my mark in this existence? I don't want to leave here and y'all forget me in 2 generations. I personally, and it's not even my ego. I was going to say egotistically, but it's not really my ego. I want to impact this planet to such a degree that 100 years from now, y'all still talking about me. Your great great grandkids is like still talking about me, still watching videos, still listening to whatever they listen to, holograms or whatever things will be back then, or whatever they got. You know, hell, you can put my conscience in a robot. I'll be good to go. I ain't got a problem with that. Was the ex-wife a youngest child because that's a result of younger children syndrome? She was the middle child. She was the middle child. But she was the one that her family put the most pressure on to succeed. Um, See, I think it's funny when the hippie movement happened, that they brought crack and heroin into the pop. Here's the thing about the hippie movement. Every time the average person starts to open their minds, open their consciousness, the governments, the ones in control, has to shut it down. There was a great opening of the mind occurring, and then World War I happened. Well, after World War One, the opening of the mind started again. World War Two happened. Start opening the mind again. The Korean War, Vietnam War, hippies, Got to start wars. We got to do something to get you away from opening your mind. People start opening their mind, and this sounds so wrong. People start opening their minds in this new age that we're in. Trump is elected president. Got a whole bunch of y'all distracted by paying attention to that fool. You know, and I ain't gonna lie, I was hurt by Trump. Trump hurt me deep because I actually believed the persona that his books created, not the reality of the person. So I know a lot of people just mad. I was mad and hurt because I had a 1980s and 90s persona of this businessman. And then when the reality of the person came out, I was like, no, send the representative back. I need the representative because this fool here, whew, hurt my feelings. Where was it? I just saw one comment that let's see, Shondell, I'm from the South too, but I can't see myself living outside of the South while living in America, California, Washington perhaps, but seems like out of the country would be better than anywhere else. Y'all know I gotta get out this country. Botswana, here I come. I cannot be in this country. My kids are the only reason that I'm still here, and I'm trying to con them jokers into going with me. Because if I con them, then their mother will come, so then they won't have to worry about their mother. Because then she'll be like down the street, and everybody be good to go. She just got to make sure, you know, whoever her man is, go to. Don't I think that people have a higher conscious than others that would be thought as a okay, wait a minute, let me see if I'm reading that right. Name my contacts. Lorenzo, don't you think if people think they have a higher consciousness than others, that it could be thought of as divisive? I'm going to say yes and no. People who think they have a higher consciousness but doesn't know that they are of a higher consciousness, yes, those people cause division. They're divisive because they think that they're better than other people. But like in the Tao, it's a confusing one. It says that the master knows but does not speak. The one who speaks does not know. But yet, he wrote the Tao, and he was speaking to the soldier, and he taught. When you know, you don't elevate yourself over the next person. You don't say that my knowledge makes me better than you. I shoot these videos, and I know other people who shoot videos, and they shoot videos because they have knowledge. They want to express it in a way to show that I am the knowledgeable one and you should listen to me. Whereas for me, this is an outlet for me. Before there was videos, I used to just talk to people. I talk all the freaking time. I have to tell my customers sometimes, y'all can just tell me to shut up because I will keep talking. Especially if we hit on something good. My uncle's in the other room, but I had my uncle on. This dude had a beautiful uncle. I was like, bro, I got to steal that from you. I got to borrow it, and you're never going to get it back, so steal it. And we started talking about the Ankh, and we went from the Ankh to Asar and Aset, and we went into, Akhenaten, and we just was going. And really, I said I was just going. It wasn't going because I'm trying to elevate myself above them. I just love to talk, and I just love discussing these kind of things, and it's like this is my, my natural high. So those who do it to place themselves up, they're not really conscious because they haven't realized that one of the things that the Bibles and stuff do say, that in order to lead, you must serve. You have to serve to lead. And that's what we used to teach in the Marine Corps. To lead, you have to serve your troops. So I think it's divisive only based on those who think they are. But when you know, you just can't elevate yourself because you see that you're the same. Rika says she got to catch the rest tomorrow because it's 3:50. That's right, cause she's in London. She's over there in London. My uncle's in Banbury. He's over there with you, so I'm pretty sure he may not be asleep because he's retired. And all he does is go to the pub and have a beer. um, ego has to leave in order to be truly conscious. Exactly, Black Queen. Um, you have to be able to set your ego over here and only allow your ego for its actual use, right? And then, oh, she's in Manchester. She's in Manchester. All right. I've went to Manchester plenty of times. I really like the place. Been all over England. Mildenhall was a bit of a disappointment. No, that damn Stonehenge. Let me stop my accent because it's gonna turn to a Scottish one in a minute. But that damn Stonehenge, man, I was so disappointed in Stonehenge. Back in the '90s when I went because I didn't understand the relation to ley lines and the pyramids and Thoth and all that stuff. So now I got to go back to Stonehenge again. But and then they had graffiti on it and they had ropes around it so nobody could get near it because they were cleaning them off. So it's like you couldn't even touch them. Yep, Mildenhall. I think they closed that Air Force base down. How do you know if you have a high consciousness? Is it objective or subjective? You know, I'm gonna say it like this. I think you, in my opinion, I think when you have a higher level of consciousness, you begin to just see everything and everyone differently. When you watch the news, when you see people interactions, you don't see them the way that everybody else sees them. When you read something, you see the full picture of something, not just the part that people who look like you see it. Like, I'm the kind that when I see a news story, before I make my conclusion, let's get all the information first. Let's get all the facts. Let's find out as much as we can. Let's find out every reason and rationale as to why this thing is happening. So before I make a jump decision at something, let me think through it first. And the more I think through it, let me understand why. Even when I think it's something that should not have happened, let me understand why. Why does this happen in our society? Why is there starvation in our society? Why do people continue to? And it's not that just why so I can be mad, but why so I can understand it. And because if I can't understand it, I can't change it. I can't be effective at manipulating the energy of it if I don't understand it. It's like gravity. Without the understanding of gravity, you can't manipulate gravity. Without the understanding of torque, you cannot manipulate torque. You got to have that understanding. Lakenheath. I like Lakenheath. I went there. No, you don't have too many questions. There is no such thing as too many questions. There is a such thing as a dumb question. I was just playing. Dog, I crack myself up. But there's never lack, ever. Yet people lack the most basic things. You're absolutely right. There isn't a reason for lack. It really isn't. We throw away so much food in America. We throw away so much clothing. We waste so much water. I mean, the water part is kind of hard though, because like you're living in a desert. How do we get the water to you? You know, we can go dig wells and that sort of thing, and that's good. But you're living in the desert. Maybe you shouldn't live in the desert. There are certain places I just think we live that we just should not be living. Like, I would never purposely go and build society in a place where it's inhospitable to live. Now, I understand Babylon was able to grow because they had the Euphrates River, so irrigation makes sense. But at least you have the river. But people go live in places where it's just, and they stay in places that's horrible. I don't understand it. But we don't. There is not a lack. If we shared resources in this world, no child would be going hungry tonight. Don't they have a replica of Stonehenge somewhere else in the hemisphere along the same longitude? I don't know if they have a replica of Stonehenge. I just saw something recently where they was showing how Easter Island, if you went straight through the earth, Easter Island and Stonehenge match up. And I didn't get a chance to read it. I didn't take the chance to read it. But I got to go back and read that one to see what they was actually talking about, to see if it was something real. But it looked like Stonehenge and Easter Island match, going through the core of the earth. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So many people live in fear. They do, and fear is the big thing. And then we live in fear of somebody taking our material stuff, the crap that we have. Why? There's no reason for that. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, Stonehenge. I'm telling y'all, I was so excited about Stonehenge. Let me tell you, it's two things that I was excited about that I was severely, severely, severely disappointed. But I still got to go back to both of them. And I'm going to tell you why. Stonehenge, I already told you. Severely disappointed. But I got to go back because now I understand ley lines and things better. So I got to go back to Stonehenge. Got to see if I can feel some energy on them ley lines. Because that's a major ley line. Cross section too that connects to the pyramids. So I got to go back to Stonehenge. Plus I want to do a magic spell while I'm at Stonehenge. Just for the hell of it. Eiffel Tower. Before I ever went to France, I took French in high school. Eiffel Tower was the thing. Studied it, talked about it. TV, it looks beautiful. Pictures, it looks beautiful. I get there, it look like an unfinished construction site. I was so disappointed because when you can see the beams and the big old screws and everything, it's like this is just like somebody took like a Lego set beams and put it together. I was so disappointed. Now the view from the top, beautiful. Restaurant is up the top sucks to me, but I'm not big on French food. I don't like French food too much. The only reason I got to go back to Stonehenge, I didn't know that there's a hidden apartment. I mean, not Stonehenge, the Eiffel Tower. There's a hidden apartment. And I just want to see the apartment. I got to go back so I can see the hidden apartment. How do you have something hidden? I was up there, did not even see it. So I got to go back and see the hidden apartment. That's the only reason I'm going back. All of the important buildings on ley lines, exactly. If you look at Atlanta, D.C., New York, they're all on the same ley line. That energy. Major cities are built on ley lines. Major monuments are built on ley lines. Isn't Göbekli in Turkey on the same logic? You know what? I gotta check that out. I know it's in Turkey, yes, but I gotta check that out. Okay. So Göbekli. Here's the thing. I can't. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna mess that name up so many times. Göbekli Tepe. I don't want to jump in too early. I want them to get some deep stuff first. Now, some of the things like the 3D carvings and stuff they've been doing. Hey, Miss Hill. Some of the 3D carvings they've been doing. Yeah, I want to jump in and to go back to Tepe. I want to jump in, but I want them to pull some more info first. Because when I jump in, I want it to be deep. I don't want to jump in and it's still shallow. So I've been kind of like purposely avoiding go back to Tepe. Because I'm waiting for more to come out because I want to be in it. But but I do plan on going over to that side of the world to visit within the next 3 years. I got to take my kids. They're big enough now. They're grown enough. I want to take them. Okay. Yep, the pyramids. And see, all these things, and a lot of these things line up astrologically as well. Just like the pyramids line up with what the Greeks call Orion's belt, which was the Egyptians called Osiris's or Osiris belt, which that belt points to Sirius, which is also the dog star, which is the womb of Isis, the constellation of Isis, which on December 25th points directly to where the sun rises. So the belt of Osiris points to the womb of Aset, to the birth of Heru. It's just where it is. And the Gaza Strip pyramids line up perfectly with that. Plus the interior of the Gaza Strip, Tesla showed that it's a power plant. So, yeah, all of that. um, so I was laughing because Riri Ha said that I've told her like something someone wasn't good at engineering. It does. I was so disappointed. The view though is beautiful. I think anybody, if you want a good view, topside view of Paris, that's a good place to go and have a view. I just need to see that hidden apartment that's there. I would pay the money to stay in it too. What do you think about all this Illuminati talk? Do you think the Illuminati exists? Man, that's a video all on itself. So the Illuminati, we can start out with what's his name, Ashcroft, who started it in Bavaria, and his thing was he wanted to create an organization to infiltrate governments and politics and religion so that all the hidden information can be revealed, but he thought that only certain higher level people should be able to access that information. It's the same thing that Pythagoras thought when he came from the school of Akhenaten and learning from in India and Israel and all that area and started the Pythagoreans. People who have acquired higher knowledge, the deeper knowledge of things, have a tendency to want to take it and hide it and not give it away for everybody else because they feel like everybody can't handle it. And the truth be told, everybody can't handle it. They can't. If they told if they let's say they were aliens for real on planet Earth, most people can't handle that information. You wouldn't be able to handle that information. They freak out, it'd be a mass hysteria. So only a few people can handle the information. Some of the things I did in the Marine Corps, only a few people can handle the information of what I know about things that happen in the world when I was in the Marine Corps. That if the world knew everything that happened and everything that everybody did, this is why we got need to know clearances and top secret clearances and secret clearances and all that, because y'all don't need to know. So do I believe that an Illuminati organization exists? Sure do. That there are secret organizations all over now. I ain't talking about non-secret organizations. Like everybody like to jump on the Masons, which I always find it funny because those who like Egypt jump on Masons when if you understood true Masonry starts in Egypt with the builders in Egypt, the builders of the temples and things in Egypt. People in the Bible don't like the Masons, but Joseph was a stonemason, and that's why he was able. And if you know Masonry, you know that one of the things about Masons is that they were some of the only people back in those days who had the freedom to travel anywhere in the world without getting permission from the king. Like basically in today's vernacular, they could travel without a passport. So the fact of the matter is that Masonry has been in everybody's organization, but it was demonized during the anti-Masonic movements. Certain people took on personas. Alex de Crowley, all these people with their, the Golden Dawns and Madame Blavatsky, these people took on these personas and people vilified them for them because it was different. Skull and Bones, are they a secret? Sort of. Do you know what goes on in there? No. Do you have a pretty good idea? Somewhat decent. Is there some depth to it that you don't know about? Hell yeah. Bohemian Grove? Hell yeah. Bilderberg Group? Definitely. But most of these organizations are fighting against each other to try to control the world, but all of them think that they're doing what's best for the world. That's the sad part about it. Like Hitler thought he was doing what was best for the world, best for humanity. All of them think they're doing what's best. Do they exist? Probably do. Are we ever going to really, really know? Unless you're a part of them, you're never going to know. All these people who just making up stuff, it's wolf tickets to get you to click. Are they concerned about every small individual? No. Until you start doing things that creates waves, that hurts their organizations on a higher level, then they're worried about you. So what do you believe? I believe that I follow natural law, 7 hermetic laws. That there is a creative, infinite, intelligent mind, but it's not this emotional based creator that all these religions have. That as Lao Tzu said, the moment you give the way that can be named is no longer the way. So the moment you put a title on it, put a name on it, the moment you call it God, the moment you call it Jesus, Jehovah, Yahweh, you know, Enki, Enlil, the moment you do that, it's no longer the infinite intelligent mind, because that can't be fully conceptualized by any infinite brain, any finite brain. The infinite brain can't be conceptualized fully by the finite. We can only understand parts. So 6 blind men touching an elephant. So are the ancient alien folks are so are we the ancient aliens? Folks are so enamored. Well, I do think that I will give some credence to because what the Sumerians were writing is so far in advance of anything of from their time and in between to when we started understanding artificial insemination, cloning, the sperm and the egg. I mean, think about it. Henry VIII kept killing his wives because he was trying to get a son, but he thought that the son, the determination of you have a son or a daughter was based on the woman. Everybody thought the woman decided that. But the Sumerians knew that through genetic manipulation, it was the sperm that decided the sex. Because Enki says that how he kept making them female until he got what he wanted, then he made male. So, you know, they understood those levels of genetics back then that information is lost, and then we recaptured it. You know, test tube, putting test tube babies and all that kind of stuff. So I give some credence to that so I will say that if the Anunnaki actually exist, like the Sumerians are saying, we are all, to a certain degree, part Anunnaki. Some people have more Anunnaki blood than others because of all that incest and stuff, but we're all part Anunnaki, and it depends on what caste of Anunnaki you were part of as to how much Anunnaki blood you have as well. That's another aspect of it. But ancient aliens are flying? No. Were our forefathers some of the ancient aliens? I would say, well, yeah. I mean, the Mesoamericans, they wrote about ancient aliens and had their little pictures and stuff of dudes riding rocket ships. Now, come on, man. Why would they just automatically? I mean, how they gonna write fantasy novels and everybody wrote fantasy novels about those rocket ships, and they had no way of contacting each other? Do you think that Jay-Z and Beyonce are Illuminati? I don't know. Beyonce and Jay-Z don't affect my life, so I really don't think about them too much. Could they be holding up symbols and all that kind of stuff? Are they part of maybe some organizations and stuff? They probably are. I would imagine once you get to certain levels, that there are organizations they want to bring you in because you're an influencer. So they might be part of the Illuminati. Do I think the Illuminati, if they exist, is some horrible organization? I don't. Because you know why I don't? Because I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're really doing. People give stuff to the Illuminati, claim stuff to be part of the Illuminati, but they don't know. They're just talking. They're just making up stuff. Now, when Beyonce did her Super Bowl thing, was that a magic spell that she was doing, that performance? Yeah. When she was doing the Kali dance, was she killing the male ego by demonstrating the dance? Sure. But is she trying to kill everybody by doing her Super Bowl performance? And I think the lights were off for exactly 33 minutes or 33, something like that. Were they utilizing numerology? Of course they were. Are they doing it for their own benefit? They sure hell are. Sure hell are. That's one of the points of doing magic spells and stuff. But are they out here trying to depopulate the planet through their music? Probably not. Hell, if anything, some of her music is populating the planet. How do we just wake up one day like I did and realize everything was a lie? And you didn't just wake up one day. It's kind of like everything in life. When something changes, change never occurs immediately. Only the realization happens immediately. Okay, so before I became a popcorn guy, I used to own 3 gyms. I know. I went from one extreme to the other. But I had this client. Year after year after year, she kept coming to me and I kept firing her butt because she wouldn't do the work. But then I really accepted her the year that she tried to go to Six Flags with her kids and she couldn't ride any of the rides because she was too fat. It clicked that day. She always knew she needed to lose weight. She always knew she was unhealthy. But it was that, and it clicked. She was always doing something, always working on it, always trying to work this, do that, do this, grasshopper mind all over the place. But it just worked. You knew something was running afoul in your brain. You knew something wasn't quite right. You heard that message. It don't sit well with me. I'm listening, and here's Jacob, and he is told to go to his uncle to marry one of his cousins. He want to marry this one, but he got tricked into marrying the other one, and then he married that one, and then he got to work another 7 years to get the one that he actually want, which makes the one that he got feel bad. And then the 2 women have contests basically to see who can get a son and get pregnant. And then if they can't get sons, they tell they slave their handmaids to go sleep with them too, and they're making all these kids, and these supposed to be 12 tribes of Israel. It just, something about that just, they don't seem right. So you knew these things. They were bothering you. It's just finally there was so much that your brain just said, that's it. I can't do this no more. I can't listen to this no more. I can't keep following and acting no more. And you wake up from the dream, but you were lucid in the dream the whole time. You were lucid the whole time. You say, is it, what did you say? Stroker, is it fair to say we are agnostic? That word, agnostic, I was looking that up. Because there was an ancient meaning to the word agnostics. Where they say a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the experience or nature of God or of anything beyond material phenomenon, a person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God. But there is an older understanding. Of that word. See, in the English, the agnostic from the 19th century, when the A represented not, and then you got Gnostic, which comes from the word gnosis, which means knowledge. So, not knowledge. In the mid-19th century, that word changed. That word had that understanding. But I was reading somewhere, and I got to find it again now, where the word had a different meaning prior to that time frame. It's kind of like the word awful. Like, awful used to be a good thing. I'm full of awe. I'm all full. I'm filled with awe. It's a great thing. But now awful has a negative connotation to it. But I believe what I was reading, if I can get it back in my head right, that that the A meant without, and of course gnosis, knowledge, without knowledge. So I'm not going to say that we are agnostic, that we are without knowledge. But I'm going to say that, because see, the idea that being agnostic means that you don't believe in a creator, but you don't necessarily say that one doesn't exist, is not really a truer definition of the word. It's like without knowledge. without knowledge of a creator, but there is a creator. Um, and I get it. I get how it can move to that. But it just don't sit right with me. It just doesn't sit right. It's something about that word that just don't sit right with me that I haven't quite figured out why. So let me get back to you on that one. Because, I don't like to just go with a whole bunch of crap. But there's something about that word don't fit right to me. Shondell said you got to teach in the morning, so you got to go. You know what? It's about 11:18. I got to get up myself. Is this the best social construct that humanity can make for itself? How can humanity be better without the supernatural? I'm not sure I understand the question. But our current social construct is no, it's not the best construct that we can have for ourselves. Not having a supernatural is actually would be a good thing for humanity. I think that's one of the things that Star Trek was always trying to get over to people that, they believed they had science, higher levels of science and understanding, and what they did not know, they didn't give it off to magic or anything like that. They just simply said it's a science we don't know. It's an understanding we just don't quite have. But they did leave room for beings of higher consciousness and dimensional planes. I think we can have a better construct when we start to recognize that elevating our mind is better than trying to elevate our wallet and elevate our social standing and elevate those things. I'm not saying you shouldn't have try to make money. You should make as much money as you humanly can. But I think elevating your consciousness, part of elevating your consciousness is the elevation of how much can I produce? And in order to know how much you produce, you have to be able to measure it. People like Mother Teresa measured it on how many people she could feed and help and all that kind of stuff. What was it in Atlanta? Hosea Feed the Hungry. Their family measured it on how many people they could feed. That's how they measured their success. You measure your ability to produce, however you choose to measure it, but I think you should produce as much as you possibly can. All right? And then you can't take it with you. You can't use it all. So what you don't use, give it away. Let other people use it. Or use it to help other people build their own. I believe in teaching people how to fish. I'm the last one to just give you stuff. All right, why would God not want us to know knowledge? Well, that's that story. Stay away from this tree of good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil. And many people say, oh, that's just what the knowledge of good and evil. I think they needed to know the knowledge of good and evil. How do you know what's dangerous? So, like, if Adam went over to a cliff, the Adam character, he goes over to a cliff. Does he not know? He doesn't know death, according to the story. So he should just jump off the damn cliff. As far as he's concerned. So to me, that's an incomplete God. Actually, to me, that story is based on Enki and Enlil. So that was Enlil coming into the garden saying that, hey, man can reproduce. Man ain't supposed to be reproduced. Now man can, since they can reproduce themselves, they won't respect us as the gods. So we got to keep them away from our science, our knowledge. So we got to kick them out of the garden. That's how the Sumerian story goes, pretty much, with Enlil. Okay. My grandma just died and came back to life and said, there is God. That she was happy she died and pissed that she came back. The mind is a very powerful thing, and when we have near-death experience, we have a tremendous amount of DMT that's released into our brains. And whatever our consciousness has developed an understanding of, that's what we usually will see. But because people have all been told you see the light, you see an angel, you see God this and God that, when that DMT is released into that subconscious brain, that's what you see. Because if your grandma is Christian and she says she died and came back, well, according to the Bible, you only have one appointment with death. So you can't die and come back. You dead is dead. So she had a near-death experience with a ton load of DMT dumped into her brain, which allows you, DMT is what also allows you to have dreams and visions and that sort of thing. It's a hallucinogen, but you produce it naturally in your pineal gland. So um, many people who have said that, they're not realizing the cause and effect. Near death, DMT, visions, hallucinations, based on the power of your subconscious brain. Which is why, personally, I believe when you actually die from this consciousness, when you leave this meat suit, your subconscious brain now takes over. So you're in a conscious dream for your, until your subconscious say, I want to go back to another body, or I want to go to this dimensional plane or that dimensional plane. But that's why you create your own universe at that point. How did Jacob know about the pineal gland, and was the pineal named after the Bible? Or was the pineal named after the Bible? Well, here's the thing. It's a made up story. Jacob, that story wasn't written until um, Egypt was already well established. Egypt already knew about the pineal gland, right? That's why the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra looks like the pineal gland. So they already knew about it. So when the writers of this story, they would have probably already known about, the writers already knew about the pineal gland. So when they wrote the story, they called it pineal because you saw God through your pineal. Understand the analogy of it. When you wrestle with yourself, with your flesh, and you win the battle from your flesh, your third eye opens. When that third eye opens, you see God, the God in you, the raising of your male and female energy. You see the higher levels of consciousness. You see and understand dimensional planes. So the story is understood differently. When you look at it as an allegory, understanding the symbolism of the wrestling and all that. Remember, he wrenched his hip out of joint. You know, you stop being ran by your sacral chakra and realize that you rise up the scale to open up your third eye. Yep, death is another beginning. Why do you have so many? Now that's kind of like, okay, so like deja vu and all these kind of things, and then you have lucid dreams, and then things come into reality. You know, your conscious brain, when you go to sleep or you go into deep meditation, touches other aspects. Like, have you ever recognized that when you're dreaming, time doesn't exist? Time doesn't exist. There's no such thing as time. It's like the Mithraians used to say, time is a river ever flowing. You can touch any part of it when you open your consciousness. So, just so when you're in deep dream states and serotonins and DMTs are being released into your brain, you have these visions. You do them, we call them daydreaming, when you have visions, and then you manifest those things. If the vision is backed by the power of emotion, right, and if you can get sexual energy involved as well, then that the universe, your universe starts to conspire to bring that into reality. You find yourself in the right places to see and be and do those things and have those things. And all of a sudden you think that it's serendipity, but no, subconsciously you got pushed into that environment. You got pushed into doing these things and changing certain aspects of yourself so that those other things can be attracted to you and manifested. But you had to go and get pushed into it. You have to be there. So the third eye bad to open, like people say, no, the third eye is a great thing to open. And chakras and stuff, it's not new age teachings. They were teaching this in the ancient schools. In the school of Akhenaten, the Pythagoreans used to teach this. They just used math to teach it. Akhenaten taught it. It's on the Emerald Tablets. Back in the ancient Buddha them taught this. This ain't, we call it new age because we stopped learning it. But John Dee's, what's the food with gravity? Sir Isaac Newton, he studied alchemy more than he studied chemistry. Einstein, all these people were studying these things. Blavatsky, they were studying these things. Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, Nefertiti, Tutankhamun, Queen Elizabeth. All these people studied this stuff. It's not new age. It's being available to everybody else. And then if you can find it in the Bible, like when they talk about Jesus released 7 demons out of the woman that they said was Mary Magdalene. Then they changed it. Now it's just some woman. The original version of it was the understanding of he stirred the 7 energies inside of her. All right. So this is not new age. But look here, guys. It is 11:29. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm not gonna be like Kevin and be up here for about 4 hours, even though he always blamed me for it. So, but we're gonna be all right. I appreciate everybody tonight. I'm going to call it a close. Remember, you gotta free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. And I look forward to the next time. But I definitely do lives. You know what? The next live I do, I might talk about Kama Sutra and sex energy. That might be the next one. But if you're finding me for the first time, hit that bell, subscribe, hit the bell notification. That way you'll know when I do live. Because some mornings I do live around 9 o'clock, 9:30 for about an hour. And 10 a.m. I do a spiritual one. It's always going to be something dealing with spirituality. You know what? Kama Sutra and sex energy, that's what I'm going to talk about next Sunday, about sexual energy and sex magic with a couple, that sort of thing. I'm going to do that next Sunday at 10:30 a.m. on my simulcast. So join me then. I'll probably talk about business or something on one of the lives during this week because my mind is on business all this week. So, but next weekend we're going to talk about that. Sexual energy, Kama Sutra, Tantra, sex magic, the whole thing. So I appreciate you guys. Like I said, subscribe, hit the bell icon. If you want to support the channel, you can support me on Patreon. Well, nobody did any donations on here tonight, so I'm not going to thank anybody for that. But the ones who did it earlier today during the spiritual journey, I appreciate you guys for that one. I know I've said that already like 4 or 5 times, the appreciation of that. But you guys, I appreciate your time so very much. But y'all have a great night. Enjoy your night. It's too late for me to vacuum my floor. I vacuumed half of it earlier, but I think I'm going to vacuum it again. I like a clean space. So have a great night. I'm rambling now. Love you guys.